Hi everyone, it's Jerry. Let's have a look at a game that was played in Sweden, 1955, at the Gothenburg Interzonal. On the white end, the great Estonian player Paul Keres. He is the one player who has defeated more world champions than anyone else, 9 in total, and he has finished second in 5 candidates tournaments. These details about him are what has given him the nickname the Uncrowned King. His opponent, the 10th world champion, Boris Spassky. Let's have a look at this one, where we're working with a Queen's Indian defense. And when I hear the name Queen's Indian defense, there's one square that kind of sticks out to me, and that is the e4 square. There's a fight over that point. Black does not want to see a pawn trio and will be directing some pieces there. Now, I like White's approach in this game, namely to deploy the king side before the queen side, and there's good reason for this. One of the key defenders of the e4 square will be the queen knight. However, deploying the queen knight a bit too early subjects it to a pin, and, well, the bishop can then knock out that key defender. Therefore, we have first e3, bishop d3, castles, and now White will feel a bit more confident deploying the knight to c3. Had there been bishop to b4 along the way, White always had the option to block with a piece that would never have the potential to control this important e4 square. Okay, from here, both kings are now tucked away. Queen bishop has to do something, so b3. Knights are connected for black. Queen knight goes to c3 here, and c5. So 9 moves in. I'm throwing a pop quiz your way that's not the typical kind. Is there anything interesting that you note about this position right here? Anything kind of stick out to you? Feel free to pause the video. Okay, the thing that draws my attention is the great symmetry in this position. Aside from the queen knights and the king bishops, everything else is the same. How does this factor into this position? Well, for starters, move 10, we can find that the white queen finds a very nice home on e2. That's pretty cozy. Why do I say this? Well, black, on the other hand, well, first of all, black can't do similar, right? Black doesn't have the corresponding e7 square available for the queen, so where will the black queen go? Will the black queen feel comfortable being on the c and d files when these pawns are volatile and the C and D files are therefore subject to change? Half open, open, completely open, who knows how it's going to change? Black needs to take a little bit of care here. So, for example, if black says, I want to deploy my queen as well, let's play to c7, you'll notice that white can take and then play rook a to c1, and the queen starts to feel some pressure, right? That's an uneasy square, not stable. What does black do then? Well, initiates a capture on c4 and waits to see how white recaptures. Towards the center with a pawn or taking with a piece and go from there. Well, let's put the move on the board. White elects a pawn recapture. So, now the black queen feels much more confident about playing to c7 because the c pawn lacks the ability to make a capture and open up the c file. Okay, from here, the rook is supporting a d5 advance indirectly. Black is there as well, and d5 hits. So from here we have a6, a small move, but it's actually packing a punch if white isn't careful. The best continuation instead of a6 is considered to go in for these captures here and allow this little tactic on h7, where we reach a position where the material is balanced, but the position is very much imbalanced structurally. 3-1 for black on the queen side, and not the coziest blanket for the black king. Just a couple pawns, and yeah, there's possibilities for pieces maybe drifting out there towards the king side at some stage. All of them are really pointing towards the king side, but still, in the computer's eyes, this is considered best. This position, by the way, is reminding me of the double bishop sacrifice game. Anyhow, this isn't the direction Spassky goes in. He plays a6. So what is this little idea behind a6? If white makes a flight square here, this is the idea. This is how quickly things can change in this position. After the structure changes like this, white has a 2-0 majority in the center. Hang on. We're seeing the point of a6. b5 is in. And who knows what's going to happen next. These pieces start to feel a little bit uneasy. And they could be kicked at any moment. Queenside pawns get rolling fast. White understands this and is not going to allow this capture, recapture, b5, and etc. So, white takes on e6. Creates a weakness in black's camp, e6, and sure enough, pinpoints it. Knight g5. Queen c6 is not only defending, but game over on g2. How to defend here? The mate threat. Feel free to pause the video. What would you do? Okay. In the game, f4, multi-purpose. Lateral defense, and it secures an important square on e5. Rules out that knight jump. Continuing, the knight is given a kick, returns to f4, and let's draw some attention here to the structures. Black has a majority on the queen side, white on the king side. What is queen to c7 doing? It's preventing white from advancing the majority. Of these 4 pawns, the 2 that really want to move are the e and f pawns. These guys are going to stick around to be the king's blanket. White wants to get in e4. This move right here, so what is queen c7 doing? It's saying not so fast. That would drop the f4 pawn. So queen c7 prevents the majority from rolling. This knight is getting a bit of a workout. He is now eyeing up a weak square g6. A couple of pieces observing this nice weak square on g6. A little reposition time. Bishop backing up out of the rook's way. Who knows? Maybe a nice little battery if there isn't a secure piece that's going to watch over h7. So rook here on e8 is opening up a nice square for the knight to defend the weak squares. Queen f2. We do have these 2 bishops bearing down towards the black king, and white is trying to add an additional ingredient to this attack. Queen on g3 connects really well with the bishops. Knight f8. Queen g3. Black has some nice coordination here. This is close to a pawn advantage for white, but black is still in the ball game for sure in this position. From here, knight h6, queen h3, and the knight returns. You'll notice that black kind of lost time here. These last 2 moves. Is it really better? Is it really a good idea for black to have played knight h5 and f6 just to have the queen on h3 instead of g3? It is white's move once more. The computer is actually preferring, instead of this little back and forth stuff, to advance the majority on the queen side. One of the suggestions here is to play bishop c6 with an eye out for b5. Okay, well in the game we have this little back and forth, queen on h3. And from here the knight jumps in, e5, and the one square that has just been given up, or the big square that has been given up, d5, is immediately made use of. This has been, for as long as the knight and bishop have remained like this, this is always something you really look forward to doing, right? Improve 2 pieces in just one move, knight d5. Bishop seeing the world, the knight has been improved. Okay, he's taken out. White doesn't recapture on d5. That was considered best, but this is also good as well. Capturing on e5. Maybe part of the reasoning that goes into this is to ensure that this f-file is ripped open. Both white rooks are now functioning. From here, bishop takes e5. Knight takes e5. Bishop e6. Queen g3. This is roughly equal in this position. I like white's position a little bit better because of the bishop pair, and they're both doing a pretty good job, right, pointing at the black king. One rook is off. Black gets rolling on the queen side. And after rook to f1, this game is very close to ending. Actually, a sudden end to this game. We only see a move 30. This is a roughly equal position, just a tiny bit better for Team White. Suggestion by the engine is to play knight here. Slight improvement for this piece, eyeing up the g5 square. But Spassky goes way wrong in this position, playing knight f to d7, just trying to challenge the strongly placed white knight. And this next move by Paul Keres must have come as a great shock to Spassky, because after the move is on board, Spassky resigns. What is that move? What did Team White play here? Feel free to pause the video. Okay, the game-winning shot, queen takes g7. This is a beautiful tactic. Spassky resigned here. If king takes queen, there would follow knight takes knight. And now, okay, queen blocks, you just take the queen. The king has to go back to g8. Look at all the ground these bishops are covering, along with the rook, and g8 is the only safe square. White could then follow up with knight f6, forcing the king to one of these three squares, and regardless of which one he goes to, there will be a discovered check next. So this would be worst of all, g7, because of a double check, and there goes the queen. Best in this position would be king f7, but in this case, white would still come out on top with knight d5, discovered check, and then you simply pick up the queen. After the smoke has cleared, white is now simply up a minor piece and still giving some direction to Team Black. This would be the best Black could do after this shot on g7. Spassky understood that was on its way, this sequence, and he was going to be down a piece. Throws in the towel at this stage after 30 moves. So a very nice game by the great Paul Keres, the Uncrowned King. Feel free, as usual, to leave any feedback to this video in the comment section below. Hope you enjoyed it and maybe took a thing or two away from it. That's all for now. Take care. Bye.